Hello retro fans! While I was playing Farming Simulator 19 on the C64, I asked myself why can't I save my game state? And perhaps the game has not that much depth that it makes so much sense to save your progress, but if you consider that there are, let's say, 2 areas where you can farm on, and one is pretty large and it requires some kind of steps up front so that you are able to work on this huge area. I was a little bit annoyed that I can't save my game state. And I was thinking about how can I change this, or how can I address this issue, and it came to my mind how we did this back in the early 90s, late 80s, I mean. And this was a time where not all of the games came with an inbuilt save function, so to say. And interestingly, cartridges like the ActionReplay 4, 5, 6, whatever version, as well as the Final Cartridge, and I think there was a Retro Replay cartridge as well, and some other Freezer cartridges, were able to save the whole, let's say, memory of the C64 to a disk, and then you could load it back and continue the game from this position. And the thing is that emulator like VICE, for example, are offering this option, as well as the C64 Mini, which is nothing else than VICE running on some kind of hardware. But on a real C64, it is not as straightforward as it is on those other mentioned platforms. And so I thought, well, okay, I have to try this because I have some fun playing Farming Simulator. It is very relaxing, and it's something I like to do, especially in the evening, just to calm down a little bit, and then I just switch on my farming machines, and then I'm going to do some farming. Well, anyway, so as a kind of prerequisite, we have to do some preparation. I've tested this with the Pi 1541 as well as with the SD to IC device, and I've tested this with the 1541 Ultimate 2 Plus cartridge as well. And surprisingly, the Freezer cartridges are not working on Ultimate 2 Plus, which is something I have to, well, kind of investigate. I have no idea why it's not running there. And this is probably not going to work with the cartridge version of the game either, because you can't probably run a cartridge and a Freezer cartridge at the very same time. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. And especially for the SD to IC device, we have to do some preparation, because the game is shipped as a C64 mini disk image, and it contains some kind of let's say, fast loader, and this fast loader is not compatible with the SD to IC device. It works pretty fine on the Pi 1541, but not on this device. So but fortunately, the guys from Access were already very how to say that? Well, I got lost in the middle of the sentence. Well, they already created a patch for this issue, and I'm going to guide you through the steps which are required to prepare the SD card as well as the USB stick. The procedure is going to be the very same, but as I said, it's not required for the Pi 1541. I'm just taking this as an example, because the patch includes a trainer as well, which is perhaps not really important for the game, but if you really want to start with a lot of money, a lot of seed and all that stuff, then you may test the trainer as well. Anyway, it's just about the procedure. So let's head forward to my other Windows machine so that we can see what we have to do right now. And the first thing is we have to go to CSDB and download the Farming Simulator 64 plus 5D patcher from Access, as I said, and I already did so. It's here now on my disk, and it contains a couple of files, and we're going to need almost all of them. And then we just go straight and put our digital version of the game into the very same directory. It makes things a lot easier. So we get this the C64 drive a.d64, as well as the cartridge image, which is not going to be a topic of this video, but we're going to need this one. And then we just go and start this flips exe, and Windows has some concerns about this, and we say yes, run it. Then we say apply patch. Then we have to select FS64 disk, access BPS, and then we have to click open, yes indeed. And I'm just going to move the window a little bit to the side. And then we have perhaps to select all files. I think by default it's set to most common ROM files, so we won't see anything at all. So we have to set this to all files, and then we go to this disk image, the C64 drive 8, and we say open, and then we will get a question where we want to save the game. And let's do it, and I'm just going to shorten the name a little bit, so, but anyway, it doesn't make any, it's not so important. Let's keep it like it is. So, and then we get a message, the patch was applied successfully. So now we got a patched version of the game, which is working on the SD2IC device, but we have to keep in mind we have removed the fast loader, so it makes some sense to use a Freezer cartridge that comes with a fast loader built in already, to have some kind of, let's say, acceptable loading times. So, and as a third step, we have to create a disk image where we're going to save our game state on. And usually I'm using dir master, directory master, and here we just say new D64 image. For the Pi 1541 as well as for the SD2IC device, we could create a D81 image as well, which provides much more space for different game saves, whatever. But to keep things simple, let's go for the D64 disk image, and then we just say save as, and somewhere else on my screen, so just give me a second to move over to the directory where we want to save this, and it's probably named Farming Simulator. Here we go. And I already have one file here, call it Farming Simulator Freeze. So you can name this as whatever you want. So we can name it a save, for example. It's just important that we have one empty disk image where we can save our game state to. And yeah, let's name it in lowercase letters, so it makes it a little bit easier to load on different systems. So here we go. And for the SD2IC device, we have to create a so-called LST file. It's a list file that contains the names of the images we want to use, because when we have loaded the game from the disk image we have created just right now, which is somewhere here in the middle of the screen, then we have to mount a new disk image in order to save the freeze state to it. And this can be done by using the forward-backward buttons of the SD2IC device, but we have to create this list file so that the SD2IC device knows that we want to use those disk images. And this is quite simple. We just have to create a new file, and this is going to be a text file. So you can use a text editor, whatever you want. You can use Notepad from Windows or something like this, and let's call this FS, I don't know, disks, and then we just copy this disk name, and we go to our text file, which is empty, and we paste the disk file name into this text file, and then we're going to use this one as well. And perhaps just for the sake of order, put this on the first position, then we save this, and then we can copy all the files to our SD card, and then we can use the SD card in our SD to IC device. And I performed almost the very same steps for my USB stick, which I'm going to use in the Pi 1541. And then we can switch over to our real system and see whether this was successful or not. So just have to perform a small reboot of my Pi 1541, and now we have to switch over to the C64 as well, so that we can see something, what's going on. And here we go. As you can see, I have my Final Cartridge 3 attached, and it boots automatically into the desktop mode. And just have to go for... Oh, I haven't connected my mouse, so this was a little bit uncomfortable. So let's try to boot into BASIC. There we go. And I have connected my SD to IC device. So, and I'm using JiffyDOS on this system, but basically we should... So it's override... Okay, so basically the Final Cartridge 3 took over my function keys. Anyway, that's not an issue. And here's exactly what I have explained already. We got our Farming Simulator 64 access the 64 image. We got our Farming Simulator save image, and we got our Farming Simulator LST file. And here we have to jump into by using the command open 1.8.15, and then we have to type in XS, and then we can close this as well. And now the SD to IC device should jump into our list. Just got a syntax error because of the PRG at the end of the file. And if we hit directory, we can now see this is our patched disk image of Farming Simulator. And if we press forward or backward button, then the SD to IC device jumps into another disk image, which should be empty, as right it is. And then we just select our Farming Simulator image, and then we can probably go and load the game, which is taking hopefully not that much time. And here we go, we got a nice intro, and just press space to skip this. And here we have some information screen. We can read some documents, but that's not going to be topic of this video. So I just hit run stop to get out of this intro screen. And here we got the trainer menu. Now we can decide whether we want to have any of these options. And I'm just saying no, 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 no. And now the game starts. So as you can see, Farming Simulator C64 runs pretty well on the SD to IC device, as long as you're going to use a fast loader, otherwise it will take a little bit longer to load. And now if we're going to jump into the game, got a very nice picture with nice intro music, but that's basically all we can do at this point. So let's jump into the game and drive around a little bit. Just going to change the position of this machine here. So that we can see that we really have changed something. So that's basically enough what we have to do right now. And then I hit the freeze button of my Final Cartridge free card. And then we say backup, and I recommend this F disk backup because this is the fast loader backup, which is indeed a lot faster. And we have to keep in mind we have to switch the disk image first, so that we got our empty disk insert into the disk drive, and then we just hit F7, and then it takes a couple of seconds until the progress starts, usually. Let's hope so. Yes, now it starts to save. As you can see, this red LED is active. And this will take some seconds because almost the whole memory of the C64 is saved to the disk. And there we go. And now we can go and see. We go to disk. Oops, disk. It works much better with the mouse connected. So we got some strange colored files here on our disk. And the thing with the Final Cartridge 3, I think, was that we can't rename them. And we can rename the first one, but we can't rename the second one, because the first file is the fast loader, and the fast loader is looking for the second file with the very same name like this one. But anyway, if we now go and say run. Oops. Hit it again. Yes, that's what we want to do. Then it's probably going to take a while until the whole game state is loaded. And we are back in the game. So now we can drive around and continue the game from the very same position like we have left it. And it is a little bit more comfortable on the ActionReplay cartridge. And this is I'm going to show you right now, because on the ActionReplay we can name the file which we want to use for our game state, and in order to do so we just have to change the cartridge, switch off the C64, always a good idea when we operate devices like this. And to have some variation, let's go for the Pi 5041 drive. And here the whole thing with this LSD file is not really required, but you can do so as well. Just have to remember whether I place the files into the root directory or into the game directory. It looks like it's in the game directory where it belongs. Makes some sense. Here we go. And here we have a farming simulator disk image and an FS freeze disk image, as well as the patched version. So let's go for the original one. And then we switch over to our C64 again. Normal reset, and we should get directory as well. Let's have a look. Yes, here we go. So with shift run stop, we can start the loading procedure, and in a matter of seconds the game starts. And here we can do the very same. Oops, now it crashed. That's new. Okay, interesting. That happened before. So, well, that's a surprise. Let's try it again. Still in the farming simulator. Perhaps we have to reset the pie as well. So let's try this again. Usually it does it by itself, but not this time. So then let's move again to our farming simulator disk image. And let's have another try. Well, now it's working. I don't know what we did wrong. So let's drive around a little bit. Let's go to a different place. So, and now we can hit the freeze button. And here we got the option of backup. And now we have to remember that we have to change the disk image. So I was a little bit too fast with my screens. So we jump out of this one, jump into the next one, which is my freeze image. And then we can say option A, disk save turbo. And we're now going to name this FS test. And then we hit enter. And then we can hear and see that the Pi 1541 is doing something. It is going to save the disk image. And now it's done. And then we can say exit to fast load perhaps. Or we simply perform a reset and jump to the basic screen. And the disk image is still mounted, so we should see in directory as well. And as we can see, I've tested this with my Final Cartridge already. And I did this with this ActionReplay VI, and fortunately we didn't run out of space. It was pretty tight. And this is the file we just created right now. So now we can load this. Which will take a couple of seconds. But fortunately, with the help of JiffyDOS and fast loaders and all that stuff, it's not going to take so long as it did back in the 80s when we started to work on tapes. So, and hopefully we're getting a little bit more than just a green screen. Nope. It remains like this. Which is a little bit disappointing because it was working today as I've tested it. And now it's not working anymore. So perhaps the ActionReplay progress is not as stable as I have it in mind. Let's test it again. If this was just some strange state of whatever, my C64 or so. Now we got a yellow screen instead of a green screen. So this is indeed a little bit disappointing, because this is not what I had in mind. So let's see when we go for fast load. Maybe the ActionReplay fast loader isn't really happy with the JiffyDOS fast loader. So let's try it the old-fashioned way. Sounds even faster. And here we go. Okay, so it was purely a loader issue. Interesting. I mean, it's an odd combination to have JiffyDOS installed and using some additional fast loaders, and perhaps this is not really working the way as it is expected or as it was supposed to be. But anyway, interesting that this happened. So another experience, and now we can continue farming like we have never done it before, as the slogan of Farming Simulator is. And anytime we run out of time, we just save our game state and continue as we would have kind of built-in save function, which would have been a little bit more comfortable. But anyway, we're not going to complain too much about the game at all, because as a digital download version it costs about €5, which is a kind of fair price considering the, well, let's say, lack of story and the lack of depth. And but for having a couple of hours, some farming stuff, and just to have this feeling of having a farming simulator on the C64, nobody ever has expected this, and everybody was really thinking that this is an first April joke, for example, but they made it, and well, it's a nice looking game anyway. And now we can save game states as well and continue the game as often as we want to do this. So anyway, that's all for this episode. It's already long enough, a lot of chatting, a lot of things that went a little bit wrong, but I think it was a great experience as well. As usual, feel free to comment and to ask questions, whatever, and feel free to subscribe to my channel, follow me on Twitter, whatever it's more comfortable for you to get informed about further videos. I highly appreciate this, and see you for the next episode, and bye bye.